Hey, what's up guys? Dave reporting in on a glorious Saturday afternoon in San Francisco. Alex has received this 5.1 gallon tank from California Cycleworks to swap out in his Ducati. So we're going to take apart the existing work that he's put on here with the carbon fiber plastics and hopefully just move in and slide this in replacement, which is going to be pretty cool actually, because on most motards the gas tanks are pretty small. And this can give you extended riding, so you can pretty much take this up and down the coast all afternoon without having to worry about stopping every 50 miles for gas. So the installation seems pretty easy. There's not a lot of complicated work that needs to happen. The existing gas tank has all the cables running through the tank, and it's going to be sitting in the same way. The battery position changes a little because the extended gas tank goes a little bit further back. But the installation is just a bunch of hex screws and paying attention to the very clear instructions they've given us. So we'll go through the process and explain as we go through it. Okay, so we've got the tank off of the Ducati and we've taken it outside to get some air. Taking off the back of the fuel filtration system revealed a bit of a problem with draining the tank. We probably got about half a gallon on the floor in our hands, so we've opened up the garage door for a little bit, letting some air into the place for a while, and letting the rest of the gas evaporate off this one before we install the new gas tank. As you can see, it's significantly larger. It's a much bigger tank. Getting it off wasn't that hard. There's about a billion little screws that are about hexes. And of course we've categorized and identified every single one to make sure when they go back on, they'll go back in the exact same place. But the rest should just be easy. It should just be reinstalling the components and putting on the rest of the system. And beyond that, let's hope it goes smoothly. Okay, cool. So we're just going to slide the new gas tank into the frame and reinstall the gas filtration system out the back. Like this. Okay, so we've come across something we weren't expecting, but it makes the project more challenging and interesting. As it seems, when you install the new gas tank, it comes with these lovely pods for... Okay, so we've removed the gas tank and we removed the air box, which is located right there behind Maddie. We didn't actually predict that we would have to remove the air box to put this model on, but we were supplied with these Cycleworks air filters that just strap right onto the air intake on the bike, which actually make it look really cool. And presently we are looking for the grounding point on the engine because we have to do some rewiring. This is something that is not my specialty. It's going to take a little bit of time to identify. But once we have rewired it, we can just put the new tank on and relocate the cables, and it should be an easy installation. So I would say the rewiring of the battery cables is probably the more complicated part of this process.
Hey Chris, this is Alex. I just called earlier about the Hypermotard tank. Here. Actually, you know what? Let me put you over to my buddy Dave. He has the questions.
Okay. So that shouldn't be a problem, so we can move that around. Okay, so we are on day 2 of the California Cycleworks gas tank extension project. We got around to taking off the tank and installing the pods on Saturday, and we kind of got to a point where we were having trouble removing the bolt that holds down the grounding cable by the starter motor, which we're running a cable to presently, which is going to go a little bit further back on the new gas tank once it's installed. Installing these coils right here back on the new gas tank. The screw's already set up for it, and this air exhaust for the engine is going to stay open. We're just going to get some twist ties to hold it down, but it's okay like that. That's how it's supposed to look. It was a little bit weird when we took it off, but it's not that big of a deal, and hopefully we'll get to a point today where we can slide in the new gas tank, install the components, and then we'll be working on getting that screw out of the grounding bolts in the meantime, so we can finally get the installation on the 3rd day. We do need to run this underneath that. So if we can move that underneath, and can you tuck this down here? Down here? Yeah. Just kind of put it down there underneath the gas tank. Yeah, just like that. That's cool. I'm just going to slide it right on top. Ah! No kidding. Yeah, it's fine with me. It'll work. Oh yeah. No worries. Okay, so we've got the rear coil reconnected, and we've called Chris back and asked him a few questions regarding of how the front coil is going to work with the new gas tank. Apparently, it's impossible to install if you pre-install the coil onto the gas tank beforehand. So we've put the fuel filter back into the new tank. We've installed the new coil, and we're going to try to reinstall the front coil today and call it a day. Beyond that, the only thing that remains is to properly reroute the wiring and just put back the gas tank the way it should sit. And beyond that, I think in the third session it should be able to go. Day 3 of the Ducati Hypermotard. We're going to see if we can get most of the components back on the gas tank. We've got to get the body work, we've got to get the gas tank back in order. I've got the components right here. The spring just kind of popped off the cap, so we're just popping it back in. We're going to attach the battery in the rear. We've already attached the fuel flange on day 2. Down here, we'll be running the cables around the side of the gas tank and hopefully leave everything ready to go up until the point that we need to finally make sure the cables and lines are in the right place, and we can finally put that last grounding bolt. Removed from the bodyworks into the new gas tank. It's a good way to keep track of which bolts go where, so you don't have to be screwing around digging through bolts later. We have just repositioned the wiring housing onto the right side of the tank, and the new battery is going to be facing in right here. So now we're just going to make sure they have a comfortable fit for the wires, and it's one step closer to being finished. Alright, so this is the epilogue of day 3 for the Cycleworks 6.4 gallon extension on the Ducati Hypermotard. We've been working on reinstalling everything pretty slowly and making sure we hit all the bolts and match everything up up to the way it was when we took it off. We've just moved the grounder off the starter motor, which is down here. So we've moved the starter motor cable and grounder, and we've attached it to the ground cable right up over here where you see that yellow tang, if you can see it right there. And all the wiring is basically set where it needs to be. We've got the wire on the back. If you turn on the engine, that's a beautiful sound. We haven't heard that in a few weeks, so we're pretty stoked to make sure that everything's going to be running, and we're just going to attach the body paneling, and it's done. So for all intents and purposes, the bike is back together. We've got everything attached where it needs to. Starts up without a problem. We've got it set to the battery tender for the time being, and on Saturday we'll have its first official run, but our work in terms of the installation is totally complete.